Hi, I'm Dan Kubisky with the Society of Professional Journalists International Community. It's been a few years since the fall of Afghanistan. Tens of thousands of people fled the country out of fear of retribution from the Taliban. Among those most fearful for their safety and the safety of their families were the journalists who, prior to the fall of the old government, were factually and relentlessly reporting on events. There are a number of organizations that have worked to get Afghan journalists to safety. One of those groups is Allied Shepherd, set up by a good friend of the SPJ, Cami Rice. But today, we're talking to another person who works to help deserving Afghans get settled outside their home country. Gabrielle McGuire is the lead advocate for Team Afghan Assist. She's here to talk about the plight of an Afghan journalist and his family and possible ways we can help. Gabrielle, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me today, Dan. It's my pleasure.
So, before we look into the specific case of this journalist, could you briefly explain your work in Team Afghan Assist and your efforts to get people out?
Sure. In the summer of 21, when the fall of Afghanistan was imminent, a friend of mine who has worked in Afghanistan for 12, 13 years in education gathered her friends together and asked them if they would help once the Taliban took over to get some of her friends out because she saw the writing on the wall already. We all agreed. We are just a network of her friends worldwide and agreed as volunteers to help the people of Afghanistan to reach safety. I myself am the main advocate for these people, and we have been working since the fall of Afghanistan in August 21.
Okay, so it's a variety of people. It's not just journalists, but a lot of deserving people who.
Right, not just journalists, but journalists are probably the good majority of the people requesting assistance.
Okay. Okay. So I know a lot of refugees from Afghanistan are very fearful of having their names and images become too public. So, with that in mind, what can you tell us about this particular journalist and his family?
I have known them since August of 21. We actually provided safe housing for them. And him and his family, there is mom and dad and two small children. Their youngest was actually born in our safe house, which was very special. We gave them a baby shower, which they were not familiar with at all. And they relocated themselves to Iran in 23. Yeah, illegally, they could not get a visa there, so they were living in Iran illegally since 23. He was working low-wage jobs, day jobs, in order for the family to eat. And they were recently deported from Iran back to Afghanistan and are living now in Afghanistan and, of course, fear the retributions from the Taliban based on his profession as a journalist. He was working for several Afghan news outlets throughout the years and reported quite a lot on women's rights, human rights, corruption in the Afghan government, and so forth.
Okay, so you're trying to get him out of Afghanistan. This is as opposed to other refugees who are stuck in camps some elsewhere in the region.
Correct.
Okay. What is the process one has to go through in order to do this? And where can they go?
Well, that is actually very, very limited. There is very few functioning embassies in Afghanistan. And one of the few is, for example, Russia. And one would not try to send an Afghan family to Russia. That is not a good idea. Another one is China, which is also not a good idea because the Chinese work closely hand in hand with the Taliban. So there's really, in reality, no functioning embassy in Afghanistan. So that means they would have to access third countries in order to access embassies of other countries, which is extremely difficult because most countries have stopped issuing visas for whatever reason for Afghans.
Now, would they qualify for emergency refugee status on human rights basis because he was a journalist and does fear for his life from the Taliban government?
Right. So if, for example, if Afghans go to Pakistan, UNHCR will register them. However, Pakistan is also not a good country to try to get to another country because Pakistan is deporting Afghans by en masse. I mean, they're deporting thousands of them every day right back into the hands of the Taliban. This family years ago applied to the French government for a humanitarian visa and was denied a humanitarian visa to France. We've got them a lawyer in France to appeal this decision by the French government. And actually, just 2 months ago, the appeal came through and their appeal was granted. So now they have a standing court order from a French Supreme Court that France needs to issue them a humanitarian visa, but again, they are in Afghanistan and they're unable to access a third country in order to have that visa issued. That is their whole dilemma.
Okay, so it's a simple issue of logistics at this point. There's no legal barrier to
No,
them getting. Okay,
none whatsoever. And
okay,
they have that court order. So if they present themselves in any country, let's say Iran, if Iran's embassy is functioning, they would go to the French embassy in Tehran and they would issue them a humanitarian visa. They get on a plane and fly to Paris. That's it.
okay.
The process is actually very simple, but the logistics of that process are very, very complicated.
As let's face it, as are all refugee cases, they seem very simple on the surface, but getting it through takes a lot of perseverance.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, you set up a GoFundMe page to help raise funds for this family. What is that money going to be used for?
Well, that money will be used for, depending on which country we're honing in to get them a visa, is to pay for these visas. Sometimes you can get visas to Pakistan for about $2,000, but that doesn't happen often. That money will also be used for plane tickets eventually from wherever to Paris. And will be used for any of their living expenses that they have in the meantime. Once they get to France, the French government will take over their living expenses, so they're no longer dependent on that. But in the meantime, they have living expenses. They need to eat. They need to pay rent.
Okay, so at this point, the GoFundMe is to help them basically get out.
Correct.
Okay.
That's all that it's supposed to be used for. There is nothing raised for expenses in France because they will be covered by the French government
Okay.
if and
Now,
when they get to Paris.
okay. Now, besides donating, is there something else that journalists or even non-journalists can do to help in this situation?
Sure. First of all, they can share the GoFundMe on their social media. And third of all, they can contact their lawmaker in their own country and ask for exceptions for Afghans, and specifically Afghan journalists. We just had a case of another family that was deported from Pakistan, and at the land border, they arrested the journalist and the family, and he is still in Taliban prison. That's been 3.5 weeks ago.
Okay. So you mentioned this other journalist and his family. Are there other journalists? I want to ask you, are there other journalists under your wing that you're working with to try to get out?
Yes, we have several other families and also single journalists, especially single women that are in dire situations in Afghanistan or in
Can
Pakistan.
Is there anything you can say about their situation? Are they kind of in the same situation as this family we just focused on, or are they a little further ahead?
Well, they're not in the same situation as his family because they have a unique case having this French court order, which will force the French Foreign Service to issue them a visa. Others are not even there. They apply to the French embassy in Pakistan, for example, but they are completely inundated with requests by the hundreds every day. So, and since there's only a certain number of visas issued a week, so to speak, they're very selective who they issue visas to. I mean, it literally has to be a case of imminent harm or danger or death before they will issue a visa to. For example, we have the case, which is quite unique, of a single woman who also converted to Catholicism, and she was a journalist in Pakistan. Is currently still in Pakistan, but however, her residency agreement expires on the 19th, and then she is in harm's way, being handed straight to the Taliban. And the Taliban have a stoning order for her. Yeah, this is how medieval we are because she has converted to be a Catholic. And if they should get, the Taliban finds her, they will stone her to death.
Wow.
Yeah, this is how medieval we're getting in Afghanistan.
Okay. Well, Gabrielle, I want to thank you very much for being with me today and talking about the situation with this particular family, but also all the people who are trying to get out of Afghanistan because they were journalists or because they believed in certain democratic values. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any last words?
Um, Most Afghans are, of course, Muslims. And in the Western world, there seems to be a fear of Muslims for a good part. And I want to encourage everybody just to go to your local mosque and meet a family. Or if you have a family, a Muslim family, especially Afghan living in your area, go meet them. You might be surprised how heartwarming and how lovely these people are. I know several, of course, um, by heart, know them personally, and they are lovely, lovely people with a great sense of community and family.
Okay. Gabrielle McGuire, with lead advocate for Team Afghan Assist. I want to thank you very much for being with me today, and good luck to you. For
Thank you.
viewers, the link to the GoFundMe page will be included in the description of this video.
Thank you so much for having me.